Hi, welcome to this week's edition of Blue Circle again. again. Dave, John and myself are going to look back over Leinster's victory against Munster and look forward to our first game of the European Cup against Wasps at the weekend. So boys, 30 points, 22 victory against Munster. Didn't think Munster were all up to it.
No. I mean, there's been a lot of talk about refereeing. Munster are, as usual, of the opinion that the referee was out to get them, that his parents were beaten soundly by people from Cork, Tipperary, Limerick and Waterford at some stage. But the reality of the situation is that the referee, he got one or two calls wrong, and then he got another 12 wrong, because of the scrums, which we look at later.
Yeah.
But his outcomes were right in terms of. Certainly, the big talking point is the Earl's intercept. Now it was
penalty try as well.
Yeah, the penalty try as well.
Two.
But the Earl's intercept. Do you want to take the penalty try? Do you want to talk about the penalty try first, or do you want to talk about?
Well, I'll start going chronological order. I'd say.
Well, the penalty try is. I mean, you lay your hands on somebody before they have the ball. It's a penalty.
Yeah. He was fractionally early, but he was early.
Yeah, he was. Yeah.
I felt that.
Now I don't think Lowe would have actually gathered the ball.
If you looked at it, he had to touch it.
But he was stretching for it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I know Earls did impede him, but I don't think he made an enormous amount of contact to him. I don't think he would have got the ball.
Well, it's hard to know. I mean, all the touch that you can do is look at the fact that there's an early tackle. It's 2 meters out. The ball is in front of the player. He doesn't catch the ball. Is it because of the early contact? And if that's the situation, or the TMO rather, if that's the situation, then it's a yellow card and a penalty try.
I think, but even Whitehouse said it during the game. It's by the letter of the law. That's what it is. Mm-hmm. It's harsh, sure, but that's why there's rules and laws of the game that you must adhere to, right?
It was an exceptionally harsh decision, but let's not forget what happened the last time these two teams met in the same position. A Munster player did the same thing. It's just, they are, because they feel that they have to get into Leinster, they do tend to make silly mistakes sometimes.
But I think that's just, it's a natural reaction for somebody running back to try. I mean, what are you going to do? You're not going to make that decision?
No, possibly not. You make the decision, but then you take.
But that's a risk you run.
Yeah.
Zebo got away with it. I mean, famously in the quarter-final, was it, of the European Cup? Where he kind of dived and punched the ball out.
Oh yeah, against Toulon.
Toulon, yeah.
Yeah.
And he got away with it that day. But Munster didn't get away with it this way. You live, it's knife edge kind of where these boys are living, and they have to take a chance.
Yeah. I'd agree with that. I mean, it's. I mean, at the end of the day, it's like I said last week, and it's like I'll probably say next week. If you give the referee an opportunity to ask the question, then you don't get the choice of being annoyed at the outcome.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I just felt it was a bit. I don't know if I'd use the word harsh because, was it both a penalty try and a yellow card?
That's the guideline.
It's by the letter of the law. Like I say, I'm not saying it was wrong. I'm just saying it felt a bit harsh on Munster for what actually happened.
Yeah, I would have said it was harsh.
One or the other.
I think if you're going to give
yellow card.
Well, if you're going to give the penalty,
there's probably a law.
You got to give the penalty
both.
try because I mean it's a metre from the line. But I'm not sure whether he would have made it, but that's because Earls was hanging off the back of him. But I don't know he was there for.
I think it's a double punishment. It's actually a discussion that goes on in a lot of sports. In soccer, they're having a similar discussion about if somebody gives away a foul that leads to a penalty, should it be a red card as well? And if it's a penalty, does there need to be a red card? That kind of thing. Yeah. So it's not an unusual discussion to have in sports, because it is double punishment. It is double bubble, as they say, and that strikes me as not been equitable.
Yeah. So harsh on them, even if it's correct in law.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, if you look at the statistics of the game, Munster had.
We didn't discuss the other one.
Oh, sorry.
We didn't. The one that's caused a lot of fun.
Yeah, go on. So. Obviously, there was a tackle made on Henshaw.
Mm-hmm.
The ball went forward from the tackle.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And then it landed in Keith Earl's little mitts. But he was a metre or so ahead of where the ball...
When the ball was dislodged, he was ahead. So that's offside, surely.
I think the
but
problem
it hit
is
his arm, his hand, his head, his foot. It doesn't matter where it hit.
I think the problem is that we have the right outcome, the penalty for offside, but that's not what the ref gave the penalty for.
No,
He gave the
somebody
penalty
called
for
it for, yeah.
Yeah, he
Knock on.
gave it for a deliberate
Deliberate.
knock on.
Yeah.
So what?
Which I thought was too harsh because
It wasn't a deliberate knock on.
if you look at
I don't believe it to be a
do you have the
deliberate knock on.
footage?
No, I didn't cut it out.
But if
I think everyone's seen it at
yeah,
this stage.
but like you can clearly see that his arm comes through and hits the ball as he's in the process of making the tackle.
Yeah.
And Henshaw's looking to pass backwards, but he comes through with his left arm, and the ball goes forward off it.
Oh yeah, Sammy Arnold is completely blameless in this situation. He didn't deliberately knock the ball on. If he even knocked the ball on at all, accidentally or not, I'm not sure
his
that he
arm
did.
hit the ball.
I think it
His
might have
arm,
come off his
it was
head.
his head, it
But
was his shoulder, it was something.
Keith Earls was offside,
Yeah.
and he shouldn't have played the ball, and that's what the penalty. There was no way that was going to survive any kind of review.
No, it's funny. I was listening to a few pundits recently on the radio, and they seem to be from Munster, but they were very much
Really?
of the view that they should have let it play on. I was only a little bit offside. I thought it was ridiculous. You either are or you aren't.
Well, it's like it been a little bit pregnant, you know.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say if you'd missed the game and you just read the report and you saw the statistics from it, you would have said it was going to be. I mean, Munster had 68% possession, 65% territory, and all the knock-on effects that leads to. The numbers of tackles that Leinster had to make was twice as
Double,
many.
yeah.
Meters made was double. The time we carried the ball was half of what Munster did. Yet,
Scores on the doors.
I have to say, I never except they are deadly from 5 yards out. But they didn't seem to put us under much pressure when they weren't 5 metres out. Like Carberry looks like he was reminded me of a kind of Simon Gagan type figure that could just run from or wanted to try and run from everywhere. And everyone else there's no creativity or whatever in the Munster team that could feed off him.
Well, in fairness to them, like there's been a lot of talk saying that we rested. We did rest Sexton, Fardy, Larmer, and who else? Anyway, there's at least 5, if not 6
Furlong.
or 7.
Furlong.
Furlong is the other big one. So Munster actually didn't have a first choice centre pairing or any kind of a choice centre pairing. Dan Goggin normally plays 13, I think, doesn't he? And Sammy Arnold also normally plays their 13. The two of them are playing together. There's no Taute. There's no Chris Farrell. There's no Rory Scannell, I think, was on the bench, but I don't think he was named originally on the bench. Something must have happened to get him into the bench.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure if he was.
However, they didn't. You say they didn't have a lot of creativity outside Joey Kirby. They didn't have a lot of experienced players outside Joey Kirby. The ball, okay, Keith Earls is a fabulous player. Conway's a fabulous player, but the ball has to get to them, and in between them were two. They played fairly well in their way, but they're not. Don't know how much game time they'd have together, and they're both 13s, and so.
Despite my sometimes
I'm
laughing,
sure we must have a 13 knocking around the guitar.
feck off. Despite my sometimes laughing at Munster for their kind of obsession with signing centres, they are in a bit of a bind in the centre because they have a lot of their centres look the same. Much as Rory Scannell's a different player. He's kind of almost a classical second 5'8". But Farrell, Taute, Goggin, Rory Arnold or Sammy Arnold, they all look kind of the same player. They're all strong, they're all powerful, they're all quick. They all have good hands. But I don't think Taute is particularly quick. But apart from that, they have a lot of very similar players. They don't have that one. They don't have a difference maker in the centres, and that's a problem. That'll be a problem for them towards the business end of the competition. But the thing about Leinster, I mean, you talk about the stats and that. Leinster are perfectly happy for the opposition to have as much ball as they want, as long as Leinster kind of control how they get it.
Yeah,
and that's what they did.
Yeah, I just didn't think we got out of third gear.
Well, no, and a lot of people saying that as well. We didn't really get out of third gear, but it was a funny game. Like you'd have to say, Munster played quite well in a lot of the game, and it was okay. It wasn't that close, but it strayed to 5 point. The 5 point gap and the 10 point gap was kind of between the 5 and the 10 point gap. So it.
They got back into it, and then their prop gave away a ridiculous.
Well, that's true.
Stupid
That's true.
penalty.
That was stupid.
Yeah, that was beyond
brain dead.
dumb.
But he's a classic front rower in the old school.
And he looks a classic
He
footballer,
does.
doesn't he?
But yeah, I was impressed with the actual game as a spectacle for 50,000 people in front. Yeah, in front of
Oh, as a spectacle, it was magnificent. I mean,
it's good.
50,000 people, great atmosphere. Everyone was really, really into it.
Do you know one thing I noticed, lads, was there was quite a noticeable lack of Munster fans at it. I felt.
I don't know.
Well, Munster scored 3 tries, and normally you'd hear Fields of Athenry or there'd be quite a load.
I was
of them.
busy up in Belfast.
Maybe, yeah. But you would expect that there would have been a lot of fellas going fairly bonkers when they scored their tries. But there was I just didn't think that many of them travelled, you know?
Yeah. We've got a question in there from Andy about what we were talking about the centres and how they didn't really look to threaten. And he asked, is it the players or the attack coach?
Good point.
The running lines and angles were really easy to defend.
It was agreed, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I just felt that, like, Carbery just wants to try and run from, like a Tony Ward, from many years ago, trying to beat everyone from 5 metres behind his own line. And, like, he's a very talented runner in broken field play. But if he can only do so much when he's up against a well-marshalled defence like Leinster. And I just don't think you're going to break them down like that.
Yeah, I thought he spent a lot of time kind of going sideways. Because what he was trying to do that thing where he was trying to see if he could find a hole either to dive through or pull somebody onto him and put them through a line. But there was neither a hole nor an opportunity.
Or there was no one running off him.
Yeah.
Do you know? So, like, he was probably used to playing with some of the Leinster backs for the last 3 or 4 years that are trying to run off angles off him. But he's not getting that fellas doing it for him down in Munster.
I think probably the lines weren't there. There's no point running an angle that's just going to take you into a wall, and so Leinster didn't leave very many gaps. I mean, there were very few line breaks, for example, in this match from either side, but very few were conceded by Leinster, and he was getting increasingly, I don't want to say desperate, but increasingly forlorn looking in his search for anybody to cut a line for him.
Exactly, yeah, yeah. But one guy that was brilliant, and he's just been brilliant since he's started, is James Lowe, and I love the fact that he plays with a smile on his face. I mean, you don't see that enough, I think, in professional sportsmen, not just rugby players, but he actually plays with...
For obvious reasons, I suppose.
Yeah, I know, but...
Too much Roy Keane and not enough James Lowe.
Yeah, but like, isn't it great to see someone having a laugh
as
he's playing? He still plays with high intensity, but he actually seems to enjoy it. But like, he scored his 14th try in 17 games for us. Like, that's a savage strike rate.
That's fairly savage, all right.
He's a difference maker. He makes a difference. He makes a difference between the teams. We've seen it over the last couple of months, and as his defence has actually solidified, it becomes more apparent what he adds at the top end of the pitch. Mm-hmm. He's the whole lot. He's power, he has pace, he's graceful, he's great hands,
and he's very acrobatic
when
it comes to scoring a try in the corner. There's no better man that can score a try with 2 feet and an arm in the air and the other hand on the ball. That's a skill.
We have a look at the tries that he did score. I suppose the first one is the penalty try, but he was instrumental in this as well.
Oh yeah, multiple.
There's a chap who plays for Bath, Cockanasinga, who's
I'm not going to try and pronounce that one.
Who's
well, that's the one we discussed that earlier.
Yeah.
Who's another guy with a great neck for scoring while his whole body's in the air.
But he's always looking for the opportunity. He's always looking to do something, and he gets involved. He roams around the pitch and gets involved in places you wouldn't expect him to get involved in.
Mm-hmm. That was lovely from Dan Levy.
Yeah, it was, because he sold the dummy really well. Conway had to shift his weight to move inside, and that left, or to move outside towards Lowe, and that left Gibson Park free.
Yeah, he was actually a bit further out than I remembered.
I'm not sure he was going to make this
exactly,
ball.
I thought he was close
so he
to
had
the
to reach
line.
for it there?
Mm.
Yeah.
Of course, on his second try, he had to do some reaching too.
Yeah, true.
I thought he just had to control
it. Just a little shift in weight from Conway opens it up for Gibson Park, who was superb as well, it has to be said.
Yeah.
Thought Gibson Park was really, really good.
Some bad news. He seems to have rolled his ankle.
He seems to have. The question is, though, would he have been selected?
Well,
because good and all as he was, and he was very good.
There's a Mr. Fardy and a Mr. Lowe.
There's a Mr. Fardy and a Mr. Lowe who might...
knocking on his door.
Put it this way, the difference between the next guy to Fardy and the next guy to Lowe is greater than the difference between Luke McGrath and Gibson Park.
Yeah, sure.
And I think that's what works against him. But I think he's everything. When he signed for Leinster, he's everything I wanted him to be. He's become that player, you know.
Yeah, he's definitely improving. He's taken a big step up.
Yeah.
I think this year.
So he's just a. Peter doesn't look impressed with the news. Peter never looks impressed with the news, does he?
No, he's getting a lot of bad news recently, poor Peter.
He is, yeah. Conor Murray was, of course, watching Racing Metro play.
Well, his best mates playing, scoring
yeah.
tries for fun. Maybe he'll join them.
Yeah. Well, it's an issue for them now because Albie Matheson picked up an injury, which is not good news for Munster.
Both lost to scrum half. That wasn't good business for either side, but especially for them, like, you know, we've got some hope. They're also very light on tight head props. I'm not sure is James Ryan fit, as if they've got to go into Europe against Exeter with Kieran Parker.
And
I'm not saying he's rubbish,
following the rules
and Stephen Archer,
obeying the laws,
and all of that. So yeah, they're stuck at tight head. They're obviously stuck at scrum half. Even Sean Cronin's brother's injured as well. So, so that's 2 scrum halves. They're down.
Are they going to look for a joker for the Joker?
Pinar's around, is he?
Yeah.
It's not an episode of Batman.
Although Van Graan said he'd like to be able to keep Matheson.
Yeah, well, you know they should.
Yeah.
I heard somebody asking him the question.
I mean, he has a record to break.
Well, James Lowe, back to him. Second try. You got it lined up there, Colette?
You do indeed.
Tax specular.
This is, again, a very different kind of try because this one's all about power.
Yeah.
Now, I know Earls was missing on this wing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But James Lowe still has a huge amount of work to do, and he beats 3 defenders.
Yeah. Oh, he's all around place. Good to see Sean O'Brien back. I thought he had a very good game.
He did.
Lovely pass.
There's 1, there's 2, there's 3.
Yeah. And they weren't little fellas either that he beat.
No, Munster forwards are not renowned for being little shrinking violets, and there's 2 he bounced off there. And Matheson.
Yeah.
I thought Klein was very quiet in the game. Byrne was good. O'Mahony was good, but I thought Klein was very quiet.
Byrne seems to have lost his mobility.
Yeah.
He's not when I say lost his mobility, I mean from where he was a year ago. He doesn't seem, but then again, he's not playing that kind of game, so.
He really had a lot to do, didn't he?
Yeah.
It's just the power of him.
Yeah.
Got great leg strength. Oof. Yeah.
He's a finisher.
He sure is.
He fights for everything.
Yeah. Give him an opportunity and he will finish, you know?
Yeah, it's great stuff. And so we have the final try then that he scored.
The post-controversy one.
Yes.
Well, we discussed the controversy, so we'll just go with the try. This was an amazing finish. So it was.
This is the athletic one.
Yeah.
Again, another maul.
I thought we might have held on to it a bit too long there.
Yeah.
But look at Lowe is in that mob.
Yeah.
Or in that ruck.
He'll be out now in a second.
It was great vision from the scrum half.
Yeah, it was, yeah. He specialises in that kind of thing. In terms of, that whipping that early ball out wide. He's done it a couple of times.
Yeah, going against the grain kind of thing.
Yeah,
You see him looking over it, look.
Yeah.
I think I'll do a little skip pass, maybe. It's on. It's on.
First of all, Lowe had to take the ball behind him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then he had to finish.
Yeah.
Was it Earls jumped up for it, kind of deflected it?
Well, somebody bit in
Yeah.
anyway. Deliberate knock on again? No?
Second yellow card.
It was a classy pass.
It was Earls, yeah.
Yeah.
But the finish is just when we see it from the head on angle.
But
one step from the base of a ruck, and
But like he knew he was
in the
getting
winger's
tackled here
hand.
by 4.
Yeah.
If he had kept his legs on the ground,
It was in touch.
he was in touch. So to have the wherewithal to actually do a little dive
yeah,
and
lift the
therefore you're still in play.
And still have
even
the
though you're over the
and still have the control of his body
sideline.
to reach out and get the ball down.
Mm-hmm.
That's-
Super.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it certainly made great watching for to see James Lowe play with that kind of
joie de vivre.
Yeah. So that victory.
We're not
keeps
finished
us-
with this match yet, Trace.
Oh no, I know that. I'm just saying that victory does keep us 5 points ahead of Scarlets
Yeah.
on 24 points. But we conceded 10 penalties and so did they. Even though there's a lot of chatter about the referee screwing them, they still only conceded 10 penalties similar to us.
Well,
You're going to get on to the other 12 penalties.
If I can just show you this. That's how a scrum is supposed to scrum down. This is from the World Rugby rule book, and they have a lovely little picture there. It shows you how they scrum down.
You're just taking note on the flankers.
And one of the teams is in red, which might help. So as you see, the sanction for I'll draw your attention to 19.7D. All other players in the scrum bind on a lock's body with at least one arm. Okay, so let's just take a look at this. Now, this is, I've plucked out stills from 9 of the scrums at random. Well, actually, they're not random until I got bored. So we can see here. So here's a classic example. This is one on 35 minutes. I think they may have scored from this one. And we can see that Peter O'Mahony is not bound on at all. But where is he bound, I hear you ask?
Archer's arse.
Well, if we look here, we can see he is bound on Archer.
Yeah.
He is, in effect, playing as a third lock.
Yeah.
And he did it. There's the first scrum of the match. Third lock. Second scrum. Third. Over there. There's the third. Now, there's been a lot of chatter about the series of scrums under our posts. Where Munster didn't get a yellow card. Right? So here's the first of that series, and you'll see there that Peter O'Mahony is not bound correctly. Here's one later on the series where you'll see that Peter O'Mahony is not bound correctly. And this is the final one. This is the one in which they actually scored off where
Scrum wheels right.
scrum wheels.
Or left.
And you can see, if you look at the locks, there's one arm. There's Clota. There's 2 arms. Where's Peter O'Mahony's arm? Yeah. He's not bound correctly.
Conspicuous by its absence.
Each of those is a penalty offence. And the reason why they did that is because they were scared of what would happen to Archer.
It gives you so much more leverage.
Oh, it does. As
you said, you've got another man pushing entirely on the prop rather than trying to just, I suppose, bind onto the back of the second row, but at the same time only push with that one shoulder. But you're not really able to get the same amount of
drive. The real drive in a scrum comes from the locks.
Yeah.
The locks in the front row. So if you have 3 locks, which is what he was bound as. He was bound as the third lock. I don't know why Whitehouse didn't spot it. I presume it's because
Nobody watching for it next
Nobody
week.
expects the Spanish Inquisition. You don't expect that to happen. I've never. Somebody mentioned on Lens Fans actually that they were doing it earlier in the season.
Really?
But it kind of explains to me why, because I expected Archer to have quite a torrid time and he didn't, and I was thinking, why is Keane Healy off form, or is Archer suddenly turned into a good player? Well, we see why now.
Yeah.
And for all the complaints about why didn't he give a penalty try, why didn't he do this, why didn't he give a yellow card in the thing, the fact of the matter is that there's 9 penalties alone that Leinster didn't get.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, it would have made a very interesting
we might have got
debate
a fourth
if we had have heard that there was 9 scrum penalties.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the other side of it is, of course, that
you wouldn't have done it 9 times if you'd been caught.
Yeah, he wouldn't have. But the thing is, Munster scored 2 tries off scrums.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
QED.
Yeah. Anyway, so just quickly going back over some of the other results. Obviously, the match up in Belfast at the weekend was
historic.
58 years back to 1960, actually. Mm-hmm. So we were giving them 3 extra years. Mm. But 1960 was last time Connacht won up there, and there was apparently Ulster have played 80 minutes of the 480 minutes, which is 16% of their games, with 1 man off the pitch.
Yeah.
So they've played 6 games. So for
scary.
For one of those games, they've played with 14 men.
Mm-hmm. And it pretty much was a red card as well.
Yeah,
that's to be said.
Yeah.
It's one of those situations where again, you ask the ref the question. Don't be
Yeah.
surprised if the answer is red.
Yeah.
It's true.
You know,
Yeah.
I don't think there was any intent in it, but the law
but
the
you
law
know-
does say reckless.
But every one
Yeah.
of those players know they train
Yeah.
with it every day. They know what the rules are,
Mhm.
the laws are, and you know, you don't have to go and try. But like I have to say, when I did see it, I thought, oh my god, that guy could be seriously hurt.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
well, he's up in front of the Beak now this week, to see if he'll be available. And it's a pity actually because he's been having a good game for them.
Yeah.
I thought Nick Timoney was good for them as well.
Yeah, he's a great. Jeez, I never realised how fast he was.
Jesus, yeah, lightning pace. Didn't he? He took the-
For a
he
big
took that
guy.
try well.
But like Ulster, they had that game for the winning if they wanted it. Like they had 2 tries disallowed.
Yeah,
Okay,
legitimately.
legitimately disallowed, fair enough. But you know, they were only a metre or a yard or whatever in front of the kicker on both occasions. But obviously, still were. But like sometimes those aren't seen, and you get away with it.
I don't think Ulster are all that far off being decent, but they need to do something about their front five.
Yeah.
They really, really do, and their props in particular. They're
Well-
just. I mean, Tom O'Toole's a young player, so you kind of have to give him a break.
Vian Herbst and Marty Moore back, and it's a different complexion.
Well, that's it. Well, they'd have to get them back because without them, they're in serious trouble. We saw what Munster did to them,
Yeah.
and now we saw Connacht beat them up front.
Well, maybe you'd have to think maybe Munster were doing the old 3 locks trick on them.
It's entirely possible. We'll have to go back and have a look at that.
You do that, Dave.
Yeah, I don't think you'd need 3 locks to beat that Ulster scrum. In fairness, I think you'd probably be safe enough at 1.5.
True enough. Okay, so some of the other results. Edinburgh beat the Cheetahs 37-12 in Edinburgh. Glasgow beat Zebre 36-8. Scarlets beat the Ospreys at home. Dragons were beaten by Cardiff. I'd say Bernard Jackman must be getting very close to getting the Shepherds up there. And the final game was Treviso beat the Kings
Hammered them, I think, didn't they?
28-5.
I saw the first
Hammering
half.
enough.
I saw the first half of Connect the Ospreys, and it was an excellent game. Then I had to obviously had to go for the there was some other match on that evening. But
I didn't see any of them, but I did have a bit of conversation with an Ospreys fan, and it was I think he reckoned, even as an Ospreys fan, that the ref favoured his team. I think it was Nigel, wasn't it? And Nigel was probably trying to prove that he wasn't biased towards the Scarlets by being biased towards the Ospreys. I think he gave 2 harsh yellows against the Scarlets. That's what I heard.
I didn't see those.
But yeah, it was a tight enough game score-wise.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
apparently it wasn't in the game itself.
Ospreys seem to be motoring along a
They're
bit
coming
now.
along,
Yeah,
yeah. They're second in the
they're
conference.
the coming team, John.
Yeah.
Thank God somebody's taken over from Cardiff.
Well, Cardiff are only a point behind them, John.
That's
Third
true.
in their conference.
They're both coming.
Yeah.
One-
So
one's
it's
gonna
the same
come
as
before the
last
other.
season actually. Glasgow starting to streak ahead, 25 points. Ourselves 24 in our pool.
Yeah, we're
Scarlets
very
haven't.
comfortable now, both ourselves and Glasgow. We're 5 points ahead of the Scarlets. Well, I wouldn't say very comfortable, it's only 6 games in, but
Yeah.
we're comfortable for the point of the season that we're at. It's nice to go into a break in Europe, being comfortable on the...
Yeah, well, we take on Wasps on Friday night. It's our 3rd time to play them since the introduction of the new competition. Obviously, we mentioned that
We lost the other 2.
we did.
No.
We beat them once, didn't we?
We beat them in the RDS. They hockeyed us the following year
Yeah.
in the RDS. And then we beat them.
Well, then it's the 4th time we've played them.
Well, I meant the season.
Oh, okay, sorry.
This is the 3rd season that we've the 3rd cup season that we've had.
So this would be the 5th game against them.
Yeah, okay.
Sorry, that's what I meant. Yeah, so obviously our scrum half has rolled his ankle, so he's possibly out. We don't know. We just presume he is. And obviously that's going to free up...
Gave someone a dig. Nathan Hughes gave someone a dig and he's been cited. So we may or may not have to survive with him, and he's a big talisman for them.
Yeah.
Well, you were talking about Mick Thompson asks he's asked a number of questions about Hertz Van Rentel. Anyway,
Is he a cousin of Kennings Van Haar?
yeah. Anyway, he asks who's going to be the loser at a Fardy Low and JGP. I think the injury takes it out of
It
the.
makes Cullen's job a little more Lancaster's
And
job
I do
easier.
think Gibson Park would have been the loser ultimately anyway, because for a home game, Luke McGrath's fit. they can afford to go with Nick Nick McCarthy on the bench.
But then, in saying that, you've got possibly the Irish second row pairing.
Yeah.
Playing. And are you going to drop one of those? Are you going to
No.
drop? So you got, and then you've got Sean O'Brien back.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like it's.
I think he'll go with Fardy at 6
okay.
and put the other two boys. I have Conan at 8. Probably because his form demands it. I think.
Josh
van der Fleer.
Yeah.
At 7, and have the other two boys on the bench.
I don't know. Would I do that? So you've Levy and SLB on the bench? Wow. That's
And
a bit
Rhys Ruddock?
scary. Where's Rhys Ruddock getting in? Nowhere. Somebody has to lose out.
Is that the community games?
Yeah, well, that's a big call, and I'm sure Cullen was kind of secretly happy that he didn't have to make.
Of course, the
that
thing
call.
is, I mean, Cullen has been a brave selector in the
Yeah,
past, so
well,
he could well go
They
with.
have to make. Those
He could well leave
decisions.
Fardy out completely, or leave him on the bench and go with Ruddock. The advantage of having Fardy on the pitch is that he cover obviously well even on the bench he covers 6 and 8 or 6 and
4 and 5.
4 and 5. So
I think he gives you that bit of
dog
and
Especially for an
sternness.
away. Yeah, well,
Yeah.
it's a home
He's-
game.
It's a
but
home. Funny thing
you'll need
about
him for the away game and to lose.
yeah, well,
The heavy horses.
Wasps have played 6 games as well in the Gallagher Premiership. They've won 4, but they've won all 3 of their away games. Which, now, admittedly, their away games have been against Worcester, Sale, and Newcastle, so not stellar competition in a way. But still, they're not afraid to go on the road and win.
No,
oh, that's true. Although it should be noted that Worcester put 50 points on Bristol
that's right. Yeah.
at the
Saw
weekend.
that.
That's a result I do like to hear.
Yeah, but it's
Not like Ian Madigan or Pat Lam or John Muldoon.
I don't like the fact that a guy come in and buys a club and thinks that he can just splash around his cash and think he can buy a league or.
Fair enough.
But whilst they're decent, so Willie LaRue is apparently going to be available for selection. Though God knows what state he's going to be in when he arrives.
That's a short turnaround as well.
It's a short turnaround. It's another 6-day turnaround, and he, of course, he doesn't have to worry about.
plane ride.
It's a long plane ride. He doesn't have to worry about time zones, but it's still a long trip. So, I'm. We're a lot better than Wasps.
Well, you'd have to think that we're going to do it at home, but we've started slow in Europe before. I don't get a feeling we're going to do it this year, but I'd say if we played Wasps in the RDS 8 times in our current form, if we played them 10 times, that we'd win 8 of them.
Yeah.
You can always have an off day, and if it's game 9 or 10 that we're playing on Friday, we could lose out.
Well, I think it's been interesting that Cullen hasn't been referencing the quarterfinal at all. The game he's been talking about, and he'd started talking about it in the post-match interviews on Saturday, was the game in which Wasps gave us a shellacking in the RDS.
Yeah.
That's the game he's talking about. As far as he's concerned, the last time Wasps played us in the RDS, they absolutely gave us a doing. So there's revenge
Yeah.
in mind,
Nice
and I
one.
think that's the narrative he's going with within the team for the remainder of the week.
Oh, that makes sense though, doesn't it? I mean, rather than I don't think Irish people do that cockiness too well, really. You know.
But I think this weekend proved that we do cockiness terribly, absolutely diabolically, ending in riots and
Yeah, well,
police and
yeah.
trashing hotels owned not by the mafia at all.
Well, anyway, so we've kind of discussed that maybe Fardy and Lowe are going to start, but who else is going to feature in our back line?
Back line, you'd have to think Larmer is going to be on the other wing with Fardy, because you're not going to drop Rob Kearney.
No.
He's playing well with Lowe on the So either Larmer and Ferg or Larmer and Lowe. You'd have to think Lowe. Ferg at 23, and then Henrose and Ringshaw. It's not do we even have to think about that? I suppose you could think, is it Joe Domani or is it Ferg at 23? And I'd be going, Ferg. Yes, please.
Yeah.
He was really committed, as always, I have to say. But he gets into the ruck a lot. For a winger. And I know Lowe does as well, but Jesus, Fergus McFadden was taking fellas' heads off in
No,
rushes.
He flies
Yeah.
into
He
rocks.
really
He has
does.
no concept of personal protection or safety whatsoever.
No.
So he doesn't.
So, you
He's
know,
like one
there's
of
a
those-
man you
he's
want
like one of
coming
those
off the bench.
little yappy dogs. You know those little yappy dogs? They're really... That's what Ferg is like.
Yeah.
That's what it must be like playing against Fergus McFadden. That's
Quite,
all he would
quite
just
a
won't
big
go
yappy
away.
dog.
Yeah.
He's so aggressive. Jack McGrath went off quite early, didn't he? He went off just very early in the second
Yeah,
half.
41 minutes.
Yeah, like I hope that's just fatigue. It was his first game back, and
Yeah.
but hopefully it's not an injury. You know that something more sinister.
Hopefully not.
No, I don't think there was anything in the... Of course, these injury reports are, you know, Booker Prize worthy sometimes, but the injury report this morning didn't have anything in particular about him. So, it's worrying that he went off so early,
Yeah,
but I don't know if we've anything to be worried about yet. And also, I mean,
6-day turnaround.
It's a
Maybe
6-day
they want to
turnaround,
start them
but-
next week.
yeah, maybe, or I mean, we do have
but
two.
Keane's played a lot, hasn't he?
Yeah.
You know, he's
Peter
built
Dooley's
up-
in superb form this year. I'm not saying he's at
Ed
that
Byrne,
level,
you know, there's like
but he is in superb form.
there is depth at Loosehead.
Yeah, there
For
is.
sure.
Yeah.
And you know, even if Ed Byrne and Peter Dooley slipped in the shower, Bent can go across the Loosehead. You know, there's like Loosehead is one of our positions of good depth.
Yeah.
You'd have to think Furlong will be back. Like all the players that weren't playing will be starting. You'd think Sexton, Larmer, you know, Furlong and Fardy. We've discussed Fardy at length, but you know, who would you start if you were going to start Fardy? Would you put him in at 6 or would you
Oh yeah,
start
yeah.
him?
Start him at
Would
6. Yeah. I wouldn't break up that second row combination is looking
you? It is
looking
good,
sweet. You know, it really is.
Mm.
Devin Toner's gone to another place entirely this season. I mean, not just this season, actually, since the beginning of this calendar year, Devin Toner's form has just gone through the roof. He's played really well.
He's always had good hands, but
Yeah, he seems to
They've
have
gone to
finally
another
grown into
level.
his body.
yeah. He
I
did
think
get a
he
bit of
kind
a knock though. Did you see that during the game? He kind of looked like he was a bit limpy at one of the.
I didn't notice it.
I
to be honest with you.
think
No.
it was after a scrum or after a line out. It was anyway. Maybe it was nothing.
I think he's really sort of matured after, say, when after O'Connell retired, that he no longer was
In the shadow.
in the shadow of O'Connell, and he kind of stepped out of that and became the
Took the
more
responsibility onto himself.
and the more senior
Yeah.
of the two second rows if he was selected, because you had either Henderson or Ryan coming through now, and so he's the guy in his early 30s with whatever 60 caps perhaps and 200 odd for Leinster.
It's a lot of pro rugby.
A lot of pro rugby. Yeah.
Isn't it?
He's been around for a long time though.
Yeah.
He has. I remember him getting the Man of the Match award on one of his. I think it might have been. It wasn't his debut, but it might have been his European debut. And actually, maybe it wasn't. But against Castres, up against the overhyped Gray brother. Which one was that? Richie. Totally destroyed him in the line out. Took him apart.
And that was a few years into his. Geez, he's been playing for Leinster since 05 or something. 04,
Yeah, it was
06.
it? No, but I mean, it's the European run-on debut.
All right.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But it was early into his career anyway. Early into his European career.
Yeah.
Was it the year we won?
Yeah, it was 2009. Yeah.
Yeah.
That must have been it. Yeah.
But he was superb that day, and everybody was really fearful of him starting because it's Richie Gray, and turns out that Richie Gay is more honoured in the breach and the observance, as it were.
Well, look, like obviously this is the first weekend of the European Cup, which is great to be back.
So what's the name of that competition again,
Jason?
Jason?
Heineken Cup now.
Thank you.
Heineken Cup. So, a few of the other fixtures. Munster have a very tricky game down in Sandy Park against Exeter.
Yeah, I watched a little
I
bit
wouldn't want
of.
to have to scrum legally against them.
Exactly. I watched a bit of Bath v Exeter over the weekend, a little bit, and the commentators were going on about the Mall of Death, which Exeter are famous for. And Munster have a fairly serious mall going. as well.
Munster's Mall is a work of art. In fairness to them,
So
it really is. I mean, that
Battle
thing
of
is
the
like,
Malls.
Yeah.
You know, it's
It kind of splinters left and then it splinters
Yeah.
right, and eventually they.
You could walk into a street in Munster and shout mall, and they'd all know how to form a perfect mall. I mean, Munster's maul. I mean, Munster
that
are good teams, Munster are bad teams, but their maul is a thing of beauty. It always is.
Is that Munster City or County Munster?
It's County Munster.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But I mean, the maul always is a thing of beauty, but they'll need it against Exeter because Exeter have, they're not bad themselves, and they have a good maul defence as well.
They have a serious pack though, and they went at us with their serious pack last season, and we were lucky enough to survive in both the home and the away.
Do you think Exeter have improved from last year?
I haven't seen enough Premiership to be sure of that, but they've look at the results. I did see them against Wasps as a few weeks ago, and by jeez, they destroyed them in the pack. That's where Wasps were
at home. At Wasps.
It was in Wasps in Coventry, have they improved? I just think that them and Saracens are kind of a tier above the rest of the Premiership. So if you stay away from them until late in the competition, the further you're going to get in the competition, pretty much. Yeah. I think Munster could surprise us and come up with a losing bonus point.
You see, that's the thing, and that's a success. Do you know
what I mean? It is a success.
That you go, these are the games that you have to come away with something.
Because they'll beat Gloucester.
You have to get a losing bonus point, a minimum. But there's no better team than Munster.
The only thing is that the converse of that is also true. That Exeter won't fear going over to Thomond Park, and they'd be quite happy. They'd be quite happy if Munster got 2 losing bonus points out of the 2 games. Because they won't. Their game isn't going to be. They're not going to be intimidated, or they're not going to be fearful. They certainly weren't in the Aviva.
Well, absolutely. That was such a turnaround of a game, wasn't it, last year? I mean, I thought we were going to get stuffed, actually. So another Irish team playing an English club is Ulster. They take on Leicester Tigers. We mentioned
bum fight.
We mentioned playing Wasps for the 3rd time in 4 seasons.
They're always getting Leicester.
Ulster must have played Leicester 8 times, I'd say, in the last 12, 15 seasons. They just seem to play them every second year anyway.
Whatever way the draw goes,
I think it's a feature of how both clubs are occupying a level of disappointing performances over the course of seasons.
Yeah, well,
both teams have been fairly disappointing over the 3 or 4 years now. So they're going to play one another a lot.
But Leicester have a tradition. Maybe they haven't won much in the last 5 years, but geez, they won a lot for the 15 years before that. Can't really say the same about Ulster.
No.
They won a European Cup, they won a Celtic League, they got to a European Cup final and lost. They got to maybe 2, certainly 1 Cup 14 final, and lost that. And that's really been it in 20. When all the other clubs in Ireland, 3 other clubs in Ireland have been doing so well, Ulster have been pretty much underperformers.
Yeah, I mean it has been. I think. I mean the problem isn't so much the playing staff. I think they've got a good staff, except for what we discussed about the front row. I think they're pretty handy, but there's been too many coaching changes, too much infighting amongst coaches. If you go back to the McLaughlin era, poor leadership at board level. And then obviously other stuff has happened as well.
It seemed like they were sorting it out this season for a while, but
and then they've had then two reverses but they have to get that. They have to get their front row, the front 5 sorted. That's if they get the front 5 sorted. I mean, Leicester aren't any great shakes. They're bouncing around a bit. Then like I say, bum fight.
Yeah, well that pool can also contains Racing Metro, who Ulster have to travel to the following week, and the Scarlets. Yeah. So interesting. Well, you don't often see. I was going to say you don't often see 2 Pro 12 teams together, but we had Glasgow last year. There's usually one pool with a couple of them in it. So Leicester or Scarlets will be now strangers to Ulster. They had a little bit of a rivalry going there for a few years.
I was just thinking you and I here, we look like before and after.
Before and after what?
Bull worker. Anyway.
Bun burger.
Bull worker. Yeah, bull burger. I'm after the bun burger. You're after the bull worker.
And if I catch him, I'm going to burst him.
Well, you mentioned Scarlets. They obviously take on Racing, so it'd be Simon and Dunica heading to Clonettley for the weekend.
Yeah. It's going to be a tough game to call.
Yeah. I think Scarlets have lost too many of their.
Yeah, but are the French going to be typically French?
Maybe.
Although they don't have very many French.
Yeah, that's the thing. And then you've got 2 lads coming in that are going to,
We'll have no fear of the Scarlets.
Yeah, and they're kind of a different mentality coming into that club. I'm sure there's New Zealanders and English or whatever playing for them as well that are, not kind of happy just to take sure we go away from home and lose. It's no big deal.
Are they going well in the top 14?
I don't
I'm
know.
not sure that they are actually.
I don't know.
I had a very quick look there. I can't remember how they were doing, but there was a few shocks to lose in fourth. There's actually the top 14 is very compressed. Like there's loads of teams between kind of second and
Yeah, because
Nice.
they've all played 6
They've all
games
played
and they've
six
all 3
games.
away and
well,
3
they played
home.
8 actually.
Have they? Okay.
But
Well,
they're-
4
yeah.
away and 4 home, and then
Yeah,
whoever's
there's a bit of that.
might be one club has won 5 and the rest of them.
Because they had an extra home game.
Yeah,
it's
There's
typically.
a bit of that going on, all right.
Like you say, Connecticut have had some player turnover, but they've also, they signed a man whose name I've forgotten completely again. The blindside flanker from New Zealand to replace Tyg Byrne.
Your man.
Who fits in with their style of play because he's really, really loose. He's very powerful. He's very, very fast. He's got great hands. So if they can get their best team on the pitch, then they'll rattle Racing 92. And they really, really will. It'll depend on the attitude of Racing 92. I mean,
Especially in Scarletania.
yeah, I don't like talking about French clubs because it's a bit of a stereotype that they don't like it up and away from home. But the fact of the matter is that they don't like it up and away from home.
Yeah, Racing would be one of the few that would travel in Europe. Claremont, Racing, and you would have said Toulouse up until a few years ago.
Yeah.
Toulon.
Obviously. But
Claremont not in it this year.
Toulon are down the bottom of the league as well. I don't know what's happened to them this year, but they're languishing down in 10th place or something in the top 14 as far as I remember.
Well, the other couple of clubs in our pool, Bath play Toulouse. They host Toulouse in the Rec on Saturday. And be an interesting barometer to see
How they're both
how
doing.
they're both doing against each other, I suppose, well, we'll obviously discuss the European Cup in greater detail next week after the game. But one bit of good news, I suppose, for Connacht is that they were announced today that they were going to develop their stadium, develop the sports grounds into 12,000 seater or 12,000 capacity ground. I saw sort of a very rough sketch. I think you sent it earlier this morning. It didn't look all that dissimilar to what's currently there.
Well, a bit more permanent, I think.
Maybe, yeah.
I think they're doing the other side of the field. Isn't that the big deal?
Yeah, they're doing it. There's going to be an academy and a centre of excellence and all that kind of stuff.
So
They're leaving
they're
what's
building
there.
an infrastructure, but
They're leaving what's there on because it's fairly new, and then they're going to build on the Clan Terrace side, is where all the infrastructure is going.
where's the other 8,000 or 4,000 seats going?
Well, there's going to be a terrace at both ends. There already is, but
And they're going to expand the stands that exist.
The one thing I always find, it's quite there's very little elevation in it. It's all like even the stepping or the staggered terracing is quite shallow.
I don't know. I think this terrace, the main stand terrace. I think that's a pretty good terrace actually. There seems to be good camber to it.
It's only about 7 or 10 steps, right?
Oh no, this is the one that's in front of the
grandstand.
in front of the main kind of area. There's a good. I always found there to be a good camber in that. I mean, we were down there 2 weeks ago, and Miriam was able to stand and see.
Okay, that's good.
So, the only thing is, where's the funding coming from?
yeah,
Well,
The same place the funding from the RDS is supposed to come from, and we know how long we've been waiting for that money to come through.
and there is a budget tomorrow, I believe.
And there is a budget tomorrow, so
we shall see.
I hope both projects go ahead, but in either case, I wouldn't be holding my breath till my face turned either blue or green.
Or red, like the Minister for Sports. One great game at the weekend, and I'm sure you saw it, lads, was the All Blacks coming back from the grave against the Springboks.
Scary.
Yeah. Here's a question for you. Are the All Blacks really on it at this point?
No,
in the
I don't
thing?
think so.
I don't think they are. Because I don't think South Africa are all that great, to be honest with you.
Although Razzie was saying, well, if we lose this game, I could be sacked to, well, we might win the World Cup now.
Yeah.
Like, it's-
Yeah, you'd almost think he was a spoofer. I don't think that South Africa are all that great. I think the All Blacks have one game in mind, and it's a game at the end of whatever it is, September or October next year, and right now they're at the bottom of a trough. To build up to that, you know, it's all about the World Cup now for New Zealand.
Yeah.
And I don't think that right now. I think if you wanted to beat New Zealand, if you were England or Ireland, a team that might consider itself good enough to do so,
Playing
now,
2 weeks in a row.
now is the time to do it. But come this time next year or it's not going to happen. Or it won't be quite so easy. They'll be on it.
The worst thing in the world
on
that could happen this autumn is that New Zealand lose to England because they're playing them the week before they play us. So if they lose to England, there's no way they're going to lose to us. So you'd nearly want to.
Well, this autumn international series, I was talking to somebody earlier this year. This autumn international series and the following Six Nations is huge. It's huge for Eddie Jones, because people are saying, "Oh, they wouldn't sack him in the lead up to a World Cup." Yeah, they would if they thought that he was going to lead them into the World Cup in a position where they weren't in a realistic position to do well in it. If he has a bad Six Nations, a bad autumn internationals, he could be in trouble, because you have to put up with an awful lot with Eddie Jones, right? And it's fine when he's winning, but when he's not winning, you've just got a loud-mouthed buffoon in charge of your team.
Well, he started doing this. He started pissing off the owners.
Yeah.
Like, you know, the owners put a lot of money into English rugby.
Yeah.
And he's getting players injured. He's having rows with the owner of Bath. Like, he's kind of starting to dig a bit of a grave for himself.
Yeah.
Yeah, and your man Bruce Craig, who owns Bath, is politically is a very powerful man within the club, within the Premiership. So, you know, you have to pick your fights. And if you're winning Six Nations and you're beating Southern Hemisphere teams,
you can overlook.
You can do what you like. You can walk on water. But if you're not, if you've lost, what is it now? 4 games in a row.
Are you counting the Babas game?
Sorry, it wasn't. No, 3 games in a row, is it? Then you know you're kind of you're on dodgy ice here.
Yeah.
Especially because if you put up enough backs, eventually.
Exactly. Yeah. And they even call the Irish. What they call the
Scummy Island.
The Scummy Irish.
Yeah. Irish. Yeah, he's not. Doesn't seem to be a nice man, does he?
He's just having a laugh, lads. Come on.
I think he's a man. I think he's a man who engages his mouth before his brain, and his brain has a greater spin-up time than his mouth.
Do you have any questions first, Dave, from any of the...
I have very many questions.
Twitterati?
And we'll have a look at it. We've no questions from our Twitterati, actually.
Oh, no.
But we do have questions
That's
from our Facebook-erati. So we'll go to those and filter out Mick Thompson's questions.
Poor old Mick.
Mike Whelan asked about the fuss about officiating and the scrummaging, which we took a look at. And John Malloy followed up on that and said a huge focus on Whitehouse after the game. He thought he was fine, and the scrummaging was a good talking point. He says even if 2 guys bound onto him, Archer still struggled. That can't be good for Munster given Ryan's absence. In fairness to Archer, with 2 guys bound onto him, he didn't struggle. But the problem is he can't have 2 guys bound onto him all the time, and that's...
Well, they'll be looking at it next week, you can guarantee.
Yeah, I think that might be the problem for him. Hugh Maher wants to know who got a haircut especially for the show this week.
That'll be Jason, I think.
I think that was Jason. Jason, did you get a haircut this week? Did you?
No, I didn't know.
No.
It's just falling out.
Last year, I'll let you all into a little secret. I have a bit of a superstition. The week before a Heineken Cup match, I get a haircut. Problem is, last week I got a haircut, which means that I'm going to have to get 2 haircuts in 2 weeks now.
Okay.
So anyway, that's the haircut.
Take him on for the team there.
Yeah.
Dave, well done.
That's. You see, I stopped doing it. At one point, I thought, "Oh, you're being ridiculous, David. You're being ridiculous." And then, we didn't even get over our group one year, so I kind of.
He used to have a hat, like a Sherlock Holmes hat.
I still have that.
Yeah.
I still have that.
Yeah.
That tradition's...
It lost its magic.
Okay.
So it did. It lost its magic. I think against... I can't remember who, but I wore it one match and we lost, so it's consigned to the dustbin of history. These little foibles are very come and go. Great question actually from Brian Hughes here. How much must the New Zealand Rugby Union hate Leinster for stealing 2 players that could have had stellar All Black careers in Issa and Lowe?
Yeah.
Which I think is a good question.
Well, Issa couldn't have.
Issa couldn't. The All Blacks tried everything. I mean, they went to...
And that's why he left, I suppose.
Yeah.
He tried everything as well, personally.
Went to court and everything.
It's like we said it before, the best 20 seconds in the recent history of Leinster Rugby was those last 20 seconds of Fiji versus Scotland in the 2003 World Cup. Because they ruled... When I downloaded that match...
Did you?
Yeah. just to see if I could see him.
On.
And you can't. And not only can you not see him come on, when the substitution that is him coming on, they get the name wrong. They have a completely different guy because he just was wearing the wrong jersey. Because it's Fiji, they're not exactly the world's most organised team. So his actual international appearance is lost to the mist of history.
I think they could have got away with it and said it wasn't him.
Yeah, they might have tried, but
isn't it amazing? Like a guy like him that was so good for us, and even so good for the Auckland Blues at the time. Will never really, with the exception of 20 seconds, will never have experienced playing at international rugby, where rugby is quite different to other sports. That the pinnacle of it is
still the international.
It's still like you've got football, and you've got the Champions League, and some will say, "Oh, it's bigger than the World Cup or the European Cup, European Championships." Likewise with cricket, with the new 2020 competitions that are coming in India.
Big test matches.
Like it's someone as good as him will never have experienced what all of the greats of rugby would have.
Yeah,
well, how long will that last though? It may change.
He did have opportunities to play again for Fiji.
Yeah.
But his playing for Fiji in the first place was a mistake. He wasn't Fiji, or he didn't feel Fijian in any way, shape or form. I mean, I think he felt more Australian than Fijian because he'd spent time in Australia. You can correct me if I'm wrong here. But
don't know.
But he certainly didn't feel Fijian. So, I mean, it is unfortunate. But I mean, sometimes it just happens. James Lowe, I don't think was.
Can't see Issa feeling Australian, but anyway.
No, I mean what I mean is he feels more Australian than Fijian.
No, his dad's Fijian.
He spent more time in Australia than Fiji.
If your dad's Fijian, you got to feel a bit Fijian. Maybe not enough to play for the national team, but I'd say he didn't want to play for them because they were fucking shambles rather than.
It's entirely possible.
They toured here, and I think 09.
Yeah.
And they actually played in the RDS, and I know that he was approached.
He was, yeah, because Mike Brewer was the head coach.
But he said no.
And that was a big downpour. It's the only time I've ever been in the South Stand, and it was very, very wet.
Yeah, Sean O'Brien made his Ireland debut that day.
Sexton did.
Sean O'Brien did as well. He came on for Dennis Leamy, who went off injured. And all the rest of us were kind of clapping seriously about Dennis Leamy because he went off in the cart, if you remember.
That's right, yeah.
Whereas Miriam standing beside me was jumping up and down going bananas because Sean O'Brien had come on. So I don't think James Lowe's a different thing. New Zealand they've guys like him,
like I'm sure he kind of said to himself, where am I in the pecking order of New Zealand wingers?
He was in extended squads. He said it himself there last week on the podcast.
Yeah, and he was in a Maori squad. He played for the Maori as well.
Played for the Maori in Toma Park.
Yeah.
So the thing is, you could be the fifth or sixth best winger in New Zealand. You're not going to get near to the national team, but being the fifth or sixth best winger in New Zealand certainly puts you into the top 10 in the world.
Yeah.
Might put him in the Irish national team in another year and a half.
That's what they was signed for.
Yeah.
And I'm sure he's also, from a financial point of view, you know what I mean? I mean, I don't want to go into whatever money he's on, but I'm sure playing rugby for Leinster is far more lucrative than playing rugby in
I'd certainly say so. I'd certainly say that for someone who seems to be very, very strong, his ties to his family very, very strong, this is the right move for him.
I've heard him say, financially this was a winner and I had to do it.
Apparently his parents were over at the weekend. Picked the right match.
Yeah.
So they did. I think maybe
that's my son down there.
I think maybe Leinster Rugby should pay to have his parents over for all the big games, because he certainly did the business for us. I'm just checking to see if there's any questions on our live feed. Do you like the way I say that? Our live feed. Brian Hughes again asks, apart from Munster, who died, lads, what's with the black shirts?
We're Italian fascists, actually. Have we not?
I certainly am not. I like to think of myself as a Weimar Republic communist. Thank you very much.
Well, it was a coincidence, though.
Yeah.
We're not actually Italian fascists.
We don't ring up and coordinate. What we do is we ring one another up and say, Jason, what are you wearing? What are you wearing? No, you're wearing blue. I better wear black.
Well, I'm a blue shirt then, wouldn't I? Mate?
You're a blue shirt, yeah. Yeah.
Well, anyway, on that bombshell, lads.
On that pan-fascist bombshell.
Thanks very much, and thanks a million for watching. Cheers.